Thanks for listening to Goddab Radio, a podcast for progressive thinking people. I'm Mad Dog Manser, and I'm here to bring you relevant and honest news and information that I find compelling. We cover politics, debunk conspiracy theories, report on cannabis, especially in Oregon, and feature guest interviews regularly. At Goddab Radio, we are ferociously progressive, fiercely skeptical, and forcefully scientific with a no-nonsense attitude. Today is Friday, July 14th. We were gone for the past few weeks on our summer vacation. I hope you missed our show while we were gone. I was excited to see my daughter graduate from Portland State University in June, and I had a family come visit as well, so it was a fun break for me. We have a fun show planned with a great interview today. Our conspiracy hypothesis segment this week, we will discuss a specific type of argument used by conspiracy theorists routinely, called the argument from ignorance. I think you will enjoy the information we impart in the segment. In Carnival Barks, we will cover Trump and Russia. What else? There has been a shitload of shit coming from the administration, and almost every bit of it is beyond compare and really stinks. We will have an interview in the second half with Mary Lou Burton of the Oregon Cannabis Growers and Consumers Fair. The event is happening again for the second year in mid-August and provides cannabis growers the opportunity to have their plants judged by experts. Not only is it the first competition of its kind, it's also held at the State Fairgrounds in Salem, Oregon. As always, we want to thank our sponsors for helping make Goddab Radio possible, Honey Badger Sungrown and Oregon Cannabis Connection newspaper. And a special thanks to Eric Sky for allowing us to use his amazing song, One for the Green, to open and close our show. We really appreciate that. Let's move on to our conspiracy hypotheses segment on argument from ignorance. One reason I really love this logical fallacy is the descriptive name, and argument from ignorance, which exactly explains the position that a conspiracy theorist often uses when they have no idea what the fuck they are talking about. It is especially typical of people that are anti-science. It is such a gross error in logic that it's hard to believe people use it so often. It's typical for conspiracy theorists, or CTs as we call them, a simple abbreviation that we use since conspiracy theorists is so damn hard to say so frequently. But it's typical for CTs to use this type of argument to try and shift the burden of proof onto the skeptic. Problem is, it's not the burden of the skeptic to prove anything. That falls upon the person who makes the claim and proposes the existence of an idea or hypothesis. It's not up to the skeptic to disprove the hypothesis, obviously. Rational Wiki, my go-to for lots of good information on skeptic and conspiracy theorists and all sorts of logical fallacy arguments and everything. I suggest you check it out at rationalwiki.org. They have a good section on this. They say the argument from ignorance, or argumentum ad ignorantium, and negative proof, is a logical fallacy that claims the truth of a premise is based on the fact that it has not yet been proven false, or that a premise is false because it has not yet been proven true. This is often phrased as absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Great way to put it. If the only evidence for something existence is a lack of evidence for it not existing, then the default position is one of mild skepticism and not credulity. This type of negative proof is common in proofs of God's existence or in pseudosciences, where it is used as an attempt to shift the burden of proof onto the skeptic. And as they said, like I did, the burden of proof is on the individual proposing the existence, not the one questioning existence. In its simplest form, it's it's a formula that says X is true because there is no proof that X is false. Or, you don't know what X is, therefore we do. Right? I mean, it's absurd on its face, really. But it's a very common argument that is used, and it's also it can take another form that's called the argument from incredulity, also known as argument from personal belief or argument from personal conviction, which is when one person's personal incredulity or credulity towards a premise is a logical reason for acceptance or rejection. This incredulity can stem from ignorance, defined as a lack of knowledge and experience, or from willful ignorance, defined as flat-out refusal to gain the knowledge, which is typical of many CTs. The concept of irreducible complexity is based entirely around this idea of personal incredulity. One person cannot see how something evolved naturally, therefore it can't possibly evolve naturally. I mean, it's a horrible argument. It's not an argument at all. It's just an expression of your complete ignorance when you make those kinds of statements. A common retort to a negative proof is to reference the existence of the invisible pink unicorn or the flying spaghetti monster as just as valid as the proposed entity of the debate. This is similar to reductio ad absurdum, that taking negative proof as legitimate means that one can prove practically anything regardless of how absurd. A religious apologist using the argument from ignorance would state something like, quote, "The existence of God is true because there is no proof that the existence of God is false." But a counter-apologist can use the same argument to state the non-existence of God is true because there is no proof that the non-existence of God is false. I mean, you see how simple that is? It just doesn't work at all. This immediately demonstrates how absurd the argument from ignorance is by turning the tables on those who use this fallacy, like some religious apologists do. One important element to remember is in regards to negative proof is that once positive evidence has been presented, the burden shifts to the skeptic to refute the evidence presented. One cannot keep arguing from the position of negative proof after the presentation of valid evidence. This point, however, is completely lost on most creationists, such as intelligent design advocates, who shout from the rooftops that there are no traditional fossils long after they've been repeatedly shown them. Confirmation bias, anyone? Negative evidence. A common saying in pseudologic is, you can't prove a negative. You hear that a lot. This is, as the hat note up top says, simply not true. This is clearly not true because any statement can be rewritten into the negation of its negation. Any provable statement can be written as a negative. For example, X is true can be written as X is not false. A negative statement. If X is true can be proven true, then you have also proven a negative statement that X is not false. Pretty simple, right? So when you get an argument with conspiracy theorists or anyone who's trying to make this kind of argument, you have to step back, pause for a second, analyze what they've said. If it's obviously this type of argument, then you need to come back and explain to them and turn it right back on its head. Just as they explained, argument from ignorance is just that. I mean, they are so ignorant and they have no proof that the only way that many of these people can try to argue their point is to say, well, can you prove it's not real? What's your proof that I'm wrong? It just flies in the face of logical reasoning, and it just doesn't hold water. Anybody who's a critical thinker can explain that to you. Would just absolutely ignore comments coming from a person that made such a statement. X is true because there is no proof that X is false. That's just ridiculous. I mean, that's how we ended up worshiping, the sun and the moon as being gods. It's just crazy. So anyway, I think that's probably enough on that subject for today. You guys need to check out Rational Wiki. They've got some really great stuff. If you get into an argument with somebody, and after the fact you want to go and make sure that you were right, or that there's a better way to argue against what they said, I suggest you check out Rational Wiki. They've got lots of explanations about how to handle the arguments, amongst other things, as well as links to different parts of Rational Wiki to help explain the premises further. They do a whole section on fallacies, on logic and argument, and we've covered that on Goddab Radio before. I suggest you check that out too, because for anybody who's a skeptic or a progressive thinker, you need to understand these arguments and how logic works. It's the best ammunition you have to shoot down crazy theories and crazy talk from people who do a lot of the crazy talk. I mean, what else can I say? Anyway, I think it's time for us to move on. And you know what that means. It's time for Carnival Barks, our weekly Trump roundup, where we highlight recent alternative facts from the so-called president, a segment where we point out the absurdities, lies, and blunders coming from Trump and his inept administration. This week, we catch up on all the crap the so-called president has wallowed in for the past few weeks, called Russia. There's been an amazing series of denials since Trump took office that surround Russia. And of course, it all started with Michael Flynn, Trump's ridiculous appointment as National Security Advisor, who was an agent of a foreign government when he was appointed to the post. Supposedly, his lies did him in when he told Mike Pence he had never met with the Russians, when it appears he was taking it in the ass from the Kremlin the whole time. Then we had Attorney General Jefferson Beauregard Sessions lie to Congress, and then lie again in a letter to the Senate. He publicly recused himself from any Russia-related matters due to his lies, yet it now appears he was a part of the firing of FBI Director James Comey, and it was due in part to the Russia investigation. And there may be even more undisclosed meetings he had or knew of concerning the Russians. Still, I sure as hell hope that piece of shit resigns. We don't need racist Southerners running the Department of Justice. Then we had the Russian powwow in the Oval Office with Trump, where he basically wet himself in glee over the exclusion of the American press, or the fake news as he calls it, at the meeting. But he joyfully allowed the Russian media to full access to the meeting and to take photos and report on what they said. Ridiculousness. It's absolutely ridiculous. Next up was the fake president's son-in-law. That super creepy looking son of a felon. That's right. Jared Kushner was actively working with the Russians and even tried to set up a back channel communication with the Kremlin, so his conversations would not be monitored by the National Security Council. They've been monitoring his conversations for a year with the Russians, and he seems to have known it. Conspiring much? Now we have Donald Jr., the not-so-bright son of the buffoon, who said he loved the idea of getting dirt on Hillary from the Russian government, and released damning emails himself that will hopefully result in his ass being thrown in prison for his idiotic behavior. He released those emails himself to try to get out in front of this and then poo-pooed it like it was no big deal. Even now, his father is out saying that, well, so this happened. There was a little collusion. Everybody would have done this. He's trying to act like it's normal, standard behavior when it is not. Everyone knows it's not. And only an idiot would meet with a foreign government to get poop on your opponent in a presidential election. It's beyond compare. And anybody who accepts this as a valid argument that anybody would have done it or any other candidate would have done it is beyond wrong. You're fucking stupid. You probably voted for Trump, obviously, and you probably still support Trump. And if you still support Donald Trump, then you're a fucking idiot. That's all I got to say. This guy is so bad. He's so stupid. He's so sleep deprived and so full of himself that all he can do is worry about his image. That's all Donald Trump does. He's not doing anything to lead our nation. He's not doing anything like that. Everything about this stinks of collusion. And the buffoon-in-chief repeatedly behaves in such a way that supports this collusion theory. Even when he denies something is true, he sets up a situation where he says, but if it were true, it would be okay. This kind of scenario. It's ridiculous. You can't do that. That's classic liar bullshit from a bad liar himself, Trump. And he's always been a bad liar. And people who believed him during the campaign were just the most gullible, stupid idiots on the face of the earth. You know, it makes me feel sick about what is going on in America when we have that many stupid, ignorant people. And you know, it's beyond ignorance. You're dumb. You're fucking dumb if you still believe and support Trump. I don't care if you have an IQ of 130 or 150. If you still support Trump, you're stupid. You're a gullible nincompoop. Simple as that. I just can't get beyond the stupid things that Trump says, the repetition, repeating himself over and over and over. His repetition gets annoying as hell. He says nothing. He can talk for 5 minutes and say the same thing 20 different ways, and he said nothing. It's standard for him. He's been doing that his whole life. If you look at interviews of Donald Trump from 20 years ago, he was doing the same thing. Oh, by the way, 20 years ago, how many of you don't know this, which is probably by far the majority of Americans, and it's, I'm sure, everyone who still supports Trump. Donald Trump was bailed out by bankers in the 90s in a way that was basically bankruptcy, just as he had filed bankruptcy 5 times already. But this was even worse. They couldn't allow him to go into bankruptcy because of the properties that he owned. It was a complicated situation, but the bankers bailed out Donald Trump in the 90s so that his empire wouldn't collapse. Just ridiculous. And now he's been getting money from the Russians for the last 10 years. The only way that Donald Trump could do any of these deals was to get money from the Russians. And one of the people who was getting money from the Russians more than anyone was Jared Kushner. And Kushner was doing it in a completely separate business that he runs in the real estate industry. He bought the most expensive building in the nation. It was a complete and utter waste of money. The building is still not leased properly. They're going to probably foreclose on it. The banks, never mind. I don't think the banks own it. I believe it's owned by the Russians. Yeah. Just ridiculous, folks. So all I can say is it looks like this is probably going to bring down this presidency. It's obviously made the presidency completely and utterly impotent. He can't get anything done. None of the Republicans in Congress are willing to really back him, even though they haven't thrown him under the bus yet. None of the Republicans in Congress are willing to back him properly. and they aren't standing up for him at all. All they're doing is trying to have plausible deniability about some of the things he's done, but none of them are really standing behind him. And one by one, these Republicans are going to start bailing out. And of course, the Republicans that don't support him already, are the more moderate Republicans that are not going to be involved with him going forward. And I think that it's going to be incumbent upon ourselves as Americans to pressure our elected officials to not buy into the Donald Trump bullshit. And if you have a Republican senator or representative in your district, you need to contact them and make sure that they are not going to back Donald Trump. If an impeachment comes up, it'll be interesting to see how the Republicans vote, because if they back him, history will not be on their side. There's no doubt about it. History is not going to look favorably on Donald Trump. There's no way. And on top of that, anybody who supports him is going to be mud going down the road. It's just the way it is. And then on top of all this, even though Russia was really the crux of what was the shit that happened over the last 4 or 5 weeks while I was gone, truth is, the healthcare bills, since I've been gone, they canned the Senate bill that they were trying to pass, and they've already tried to reintroduce another one. The Congressional Budget Office score on that will be out on Monday, which is the 17th, and that will show just how many people are going to be thrown off this new one, this new healthcare plan, which is absurd. And so make sure you let your senator, in that case, know that you do not want them to support this healthcare plan. I am not a big advocate of the Obamacare, of the ACA, American, the whatever it's called, the ACA, Obamacare, for lack of a better term. Geez. I'm not a big supporter. Why? Because it wasn't working. I knew it wouldn't work. There were not enough controls on insurance companies to make it work properly. And then when the states bailed out of the Medicare expansion part of it, it was doomed to failure. And what we've seen with Obamacare is rates going up on all of the policies, insurance companies dropping out of market. So there is no insurance company serving certain counties in this country. And on top of that, the deductibles went through the roof, which I knew was going to happen. And, it doesn't, I'm sure that there's a few 100,000 people in this country that have gotten health insurance that would never have been able to get it without the ACA, because it allowed you to get insurance with pre-existing conditions. But you know what? It doesn't do any good when there's 1 million people who have had their rates go up 50%, or their deductibles go from $500 a year to $5,000 a year. There's a few sick people that are suddenly now getting coverage, but there's a whole lot of other people that have no coverage worth a crap anymore. It's a stupid system. Either of them is a stupid system. This country needs national health care, and we need it now. I'm not talking about single-payer insurance. We don't need fucking insurance. I mean, you may want to have it, and you may think you need it, but all it does is provide a middleman that's taking a cut. And they're getting rich off of your fear of getting sick. We need national health care. If you want to have insurance to help pay for your Botox, or you want to have insurance to help pay for your goddamn Viagra or something like that, go ahead and get it. But in the meantime, everybody else in this country ought to have a modicum of good health care, and it ought to be at no charge beyond the taxes that we have to pay to support the national health care system. I don't care if you have to tax soda pop, or tax fast food, put a sin tax on the things that are making us sick. I really don't have a problem with that, as long as everybody's paying into this so that everybody at the other end can get some insurance. The only way insurance works is if everybody is in the pool together. We're all in it together, and then we all get the coverage. That way the sick people are covered by the healthy young people. And you're not going to get people to buy private insurance themselves when they have to sit there and look at it and say, well, I don't really need this, and the only reason I'm buying it is to help Granny down the street with her medical bills. Who the fuck wants to do that? Nobody. Nobody. And you don't give them a fucking choice. It's not a choice, man. Healthcare needs to just be done. It just needs to be done. And we need to tax it and do it in a way that makes it happen. I don't give a fuck what you think about your ability to get your special healthcare. It doesn't matter when somebody's got on kidney dialysis all the time and they're poor. Who the hell is going to pay for their kidney dialysis? I'm happy to help pay, but I'm not going to pay for it and have rich people not pay a damn dime or keep all of their fucking money. This country is full of shit. It's getting old. I'm sick and tired of it. All right, enough of my rant on that. I think we need to hear a word or two from our sponsors, so let's move to that. At Honey Badger Sungrown, they care about providing natural products. There are no chemical pesticides and no chemical fertilizers used in their cannabis grow, and they are motivated with a passion for natural cultivation. They take pride in sustainable and environmentally friendly cultivation and produce their product on the beautiful Willamette Valley floor. Honey Badger Cannabis is available at a number of dispensaries, including Grow High Station in Portland and Stash Cannabis Company in Beaverton. Ask for Honey Badger Sungrown products at your dispensary. You can visit them online at www.honeybadgersungrown.com. Are you interested in cannabis? Do you work in the industry? If so, you should pick up a copy of the Oregon Cannabis Connection newspaper, available at over 380 locations across Oregon. We cover cannabis news and provide solid information on cannabis in Oregon and nationwide. Find us online at www.occnewspaper.com or pick up a copy at one of our distribution locations. We offer an interactive map on our website for your convenience. Oregon Cannabis Connection, connecting the cannabis community in Oregon since 2010. Welcome back to the second half of Goddab Radio. We're glad you could join us this week, and now we're going to have our interview with Mary Lou Burton with the Oregon Cannabis Growers and Consumers Fair that's going to be going on in August. All right, we have Mary Lou Burton with the Oregon Cannabis Growers and Consumers Fair with us on the phone. Welcome to the show, Mary Lou.
Hi, Keith. How are you?
I'm really good. It's a second year for this fair,
yes.
and it's done in conjunction with the Oregon State Fair, which is a big deal. And I know you actually have an area last year that you displayed plants for adults at the fair, which is a first time in the country, I think, for anything like that to have a state adopt that and allow that to happen at their state fair. It was a really big deal.
First time, yeah.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about how that works and what you guys do.
Well, the Growers Fair we do prior to the State Fair, and the Growers Fair is down at the Oregon State Fairgrounds. And last year it was quite a feat, but we wanted to basically kind of acknowledge the incredible growers in this industry, the ones that really are the heart and soul of the industry. So we were able to work with OLCC and get a permit to bring the plants to the fairgrounds. So, and then the winning plants and the growers were able to display their plants at the Oregon State Fair. So
that's just amazing.
Pardon?
That's just amazing that happened.
Yeah. The exciting thing is that it's never happened, like you said, and we were amazed, and the publicity was incredible. I mean, local, national, and international. I mean, we had the BBC covering it because it never happened before. And one of my favorite articles from The Guardian basically said that if a state fair can recognize this as agriculture, why can't the DEA or the feds? So
right.
It really, really put Oregon on the map as one of the model cannabis states, which, you know, there are so many benefits for that, increasing tourism, but having an environment where the industry can network and then also invite consumers into a very safe environment to learn more about this amazing plant and the benefits.
Right. And there was legislature passed this year that allows not just live plants, I think, but even like samples from dispensaries to not necessarily be dispensed, but be taken to events like this and
Yes,
displayed,
finally.
and so people will be able to see what an actual marijuana bud looks like if they've never been to a dispensary, and they won't have to actually go to a dispensary. They'll be able to see it displayed and
Right.
smell it and stuff,
And
which is really cool.
It's a beautiful plant, and the thing we want to educate people on, there's a lot of consumers that really don't want to inhale or smoke. So we've got edibles and topicals, and super exciting, a transdermal patch, which for,
Nice.
elderly, literally you put this patch on, kind of like a Nicoderm patch, and the cannabis actually goes right to the bone. And the success of that has been amazing. But the Growers Fair, which is August 12th and 13th at the State Fairgrounds, we basically will have the growers, about 60 growers, bring in plants. And then we will have judges judge on indica, sativa, CBD. We added CBD this year, and sativa. So there's 4 different categories. Our judges are Mark Herrera, which is Jack Herrera's son, Antonio Harvey, Farmer Tom, which is a local celebrity.
Farmer Tom Lowerman, right?
Pardon?
Tom Lowerman, I believe it is.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yep.
We call him Farmer Tom. He's amazing. And the plants will be judged. Last year, it was awesome. One grower got his award and literally had tears in his eyes, saying this was like the Academy Awards of marijuana. So,
right. Nice. That's really cool. I know.
Yeah. And then a crazy thing is that Fairgrounds is allowing retail and dispensaries to actually take orders at the fair. So that's a huge step in the right direction. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were like, I don't appreciate people using and calling their drug that it has medical benefits. And he goes, I like my whiskey. And I said, well, your drug killed 80,000 people last year, and there are huge benefits to cannabis for people with cancer. My 83-year-old neighbor, we brought her a transdermal patch with her children's permission, and she called me up the next day and said for the first time she was able to walk without pain. And then she jokingly said, all my friends are in pain. We all have money. Nobody markets to us. Come pick us up in a bus, take us to the pot store, then the casino.
Right.
It's quite amazing. We have a doctor from Alaska who has researched and works with geriatric patients, and he basically said that he is transferring all of his medical advice, and including cannabis, because he feels that with the amount of opiates and drugs that they prescribe for geriatrics and anybody in severe pain, that if you prescribe too many opiates, it's actually masking the true symptoms. So he said that some of that pain is important to find out where it's coming from. So me, never being a consumer over the years, Catholic, family of 8, 4 kids, I always thought that this was a terrible thing. And really, basically, that came from propaganda. And so I have, spent my time educating myself and have been amazed at, the real purpose of this plant, and that, it's just benefits. I mean, just one of the gals that works with me had cancer, and 27 years old, just terrible. And she didn't want to take the 17 prescriptions that the doctor gave her. So she literally did some pot brownies and was in chemo, and all the nurses were like, you're so happy. And it allowed her to be able to eat and things like that. So
right.
This fair is about
educating people.
Together.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, it's all about educating people. I mean,
It is.
You bring forth your
just
story.
In my immediate area, I have friends and family coming to me and asking, but nobody knows where to go get the information about it.
Right.
So this fair is designed not only for people to meet these amazing bud tenders. I find that people still are afraid to walk into a retail store or dispensary because they don't understand it. And if they actually walked into a store, they would be amazed at the edge. The bud tenders are so knowledgeable. I have problems with sleep. What would work best for me? So we're bringing it out in the public so that people can come to this, state fairgrounds, safe environment. The new thing we added this year, Keith, is a Can I Help You desk. We've got medical professionals, including pharmacists, doctors, nurses, that will literally be there to help consult and educate and let people know of the benefits.
Right.
Then we advise that they do consult with their doctors. One friend of mine was having surgery, and she did not want to have opiates in the house because her son was an addict. So she went to her surgeon, asked him, and he literally said, here's the retail store I go to, and this is what I use. So people need to know that they have to ask their doctor. The doctors, because it's still not legal on a federal level, cannot prescribe it or recommend it. But if a patient asks, they can absolutely, give them direction or, their input on it. Now, some medical professionals still, aren't on board. So we're actually reaching out and inviting doctors, retirement homes, anybody in the industry that just wants to know more. But to be able to see these plants live, to meet people in the industry, which, you've been in a long time, Keith, and I'm amazed at the amazing people in this industry.
It's a tight group because, as you mentioned, one of the problems is doctors, the vast majority of doctors, medical doctors especially, do not recommend cannabis. At least they definitely don't write a recommendation. There's very few that are willing to cross that line.
One of the problems with that, Keith, is I believe the big pharma. They're just cramming these drugs down doctors' throats, and that it's sad. And oh my gosh, the thing I saw the other night on CNN was basically, since cannabis was legalized in 2012 in Colorado, then Washington, and then Oregon, they have done studies where opiate deaths are down 25% in states that's legalized. That's phenomenal. That is, I think that, the more research we can do, that, it will start becoming, a phenomenon. And, in addition to the medical end of it, the revenue that has been created, I think close to $60 million in tax dollars, probably more now, that money is slated to go back to education and mental health. And this wonderful plant can really help our economy as well as tourism. And a lot of the legislature really want Oregon to be the model and the clean cannabis state. So clean. It has been, just an incredible, I call it kind of like, I've been in the industry 3 years, and I feel that I've learned so much and have really changed my opinion of the industry. And this event really is a celebration of all the people and the hard work, people that had to transfer from medical to recreation to become, a legal part of the industry. It's been a real long process, and people think it's the green rush, but I find that, the challenges are really, difficult. And that I've had several friends and family come to me and asking where to invest, or they want to be a grower. And I said, well, you don't know anything about the industry. It is very difficult. And one of my investors, I said, listen, if you want to invest in the industry, let me connect you with somebody who is an expert at this and will be able to take your money, and then you can watch it grow. So at the show, we're doing investor speed dating. So we invite investors to come down and meet with the people in the industry and see, where they want to go with it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. I mean, it sort of goes along lines with the collaborative conference that you had done earlier in the year that had a similar kind of investor pitch deck, and
we did.
and
Yeah.
you also did a speed dating thing there, didn't you?
It was incredible. We had about 47 companies do their pitch. We had an app created, and investors were able to go on and actually make appointments with people, because there is no network of being able to find out about this. And in my 3 years in the industry, I've been able to meet so many people, vet ideas, and just basically connect people. I'm the cannabis connector, people are jokingly calling me.
Oh, that's a good moniker to have, though.
Yes.
Well, so tell us a little bit more about the process of what happens during the Growers Fair as far as the plant judging, and some of the things that they look at with the plants, and then which plants get actually displayed at the fair.
Yeah, so the plants are judged on many different factors. I don't have a ton of the details, but looking at, not that I was amazed some of the plants were huge, but it's not about how big they are. It's about the health of it, the look of the leaf,
how vigorous their growth is and stuff like that. Yeah, right.
And so then basically in each category there's a first, second, and a third, and then the 9 winning plants that actually get the awards are invited to go to the state fair. And then they're on display for 12 days in a greenhouse where people have to 21 and above to actually go in and view them. So it's incredible. The writer for the Associated Press actually came down and hung out the entire 2 days, did a really incredible story, featuring some of the really amazing people in the industry. And he then went out and actually harvested with one of my growers.
Nice.
So it's, getting the word out mainstream and kind of getting rid of that stigma of it's a bad thing.
Right.
It's there's been situations where I had a personal experience where someone in my family was injured very bad. He was young, and they basically saw the mental health issues that have plagued him over the years. And one doctor basically said, he came out and privately said, we recommend you look at a medical cannabis card, because the amount of opiates that we would have to prescribe would actually turn, he could turn to heroin. So,
right.
These are things that we need to be educated about.
Yeah. No, it's a remarkable substitute for opiates. I mean, it's and to be quite honest, that is one of the most common treatment for opioid addiction is to substitute a number of a couple or 3 different drugs, including methadone and a couple of others that are not any better. Methadone is very addictive, and we know that cannabis. I mean, from federally done studies by the National Institutes of Health that is trying to show that cannabis is not good for you, they still come up with worst case scenario a 9% addiction, quote unquote addiction rate, and it still isn't a physical addiction or anything like that, even close to what you get from heroin or alcohol.
And my personal experience, I was hooked on Ambien, and I don't know if you know about Ambien, but
I know it's not good.
Terrible thing.
Yeah, right.
I went through a very stressful time in my life, became addicted to it. Then when I tried to get off of it, I was just prescribed, a litany of other drugs.
Right.
And it basically, what I discovered is it will knock you out, but you never get full REM sleep. And with me being ADD and, very creative, I can't shut my brain down. So somebody recommended to me like a vape pen that looks like an e-cigarette with the CBD. I basically have 2 puffs at night if I can't sleep, if I'm having a hard time winding down. And I am so relaxed, and it has been a blessing for me because I get the best sleep I've ever gotten in my life. It's just, it really has changed my life.
Yeah, I would recommend it to anybody who's using sleep narcotics to try cannabis instead in a minute. I mean, they just be, especially with the new vape pens and stuff. Wow, a couple of puffs on a vape pen, and most people who need Ambien, quicker acting in 10 or 15 minutes, they're going to be ready to sleep.
I mean, I had really bad back pain and put on a transdermal patch, and I thought, how is this going to work? It looks like kind of a Nicoderm patch. And the next morning, it had gone all the way to my bone and the deep muscles, and I felt relief within 24 hours. And it's like, it's game changing. And again, it's the finding out more, doing your research. At the Cannabis Collaborative Conference, we literally had doctors and scientists from OHSU, Harvard, and Brown that are starting to do studies. And I actually talked to a psychiatrist who has been studying younger children or, teenagers that have, kind of gone off the deep end. It's like we don't know why this is happening. And what I've discovered is they're prescribed meds. They're not being monitored. And this psychiatrist studied about 300 kids and discovered that the common denominator was they were either on the wrong med, not being monitored, or have gone off the med. And so I find that, for mental health, not saying it's a solution and not saying that children should be using it. Teenagers are too slow already. We don't need to slow them down anymore. But, with ADD and depression and other things, I had a friend who has MS, and I sent her an article. And when people are in pain and have no other solutions, it really opens their eyes to look at, any benefit, anything that they can do that the narcotics are not helping.
Right. So,
and I know we're going deep into the medical part of it, but
that's a big part of what you're trying to do is let people know that there's a real medical value to this and not be afraid of it. So
the thing I love most is people give back. They open up their doors to veterans or compassionate care. One veteran down at the fair last year told me a story that just went deep to my heart. He said he came back. The VA had not offered him the help he needed. The VA is a great program, but, we need more help there. He said that he basically contemplated suicide, and a friend basically introduced him to growing cannabis, and he said that the plant actually kept him alive because he wanted to keep the plant alive. So these stories, isn't that amazing?
Yeah, no, I mean, it makes sense. And the possible outcome from the plant at the end that you've grown to help you with the problems that you have and the maladies that you're suffering from. It just makes total sense. Yeah. I mean, that's, most of the people who garden.
Even the people who, are adverse to it, we don't want to convince anybody to use it. But they need to become educated as to why it became illegal. And that fascinates me. That basically in George Washington days, I read that if you weren't growing a hemp crop, you actually were fined or put in jail. So,
Right.
Why it became
That's true,
illegal
actually.
was because of big business.
It
The
was the state of
DuPont
Virginia
and
that did that. Now that you said that, it's just rattling through my mind. It's funny, but they did because they needed hemp for industrial reasons, really.
oh my God, and
So
hemp is another version of cannabis, a different plant, and there is a lot of controversy over it. But basically, CBD is a way of having the benefits, the pain relief, without the high or the hallucinogenic. I don't know how that is said.
right. Well, the CBD does seem to have properties that seem to be. It's still kind of unknown as to how this is working, and they haven't studied it well enough. But that's again part of the problem. I mean, is they haven't made huge, massive double-blind studies that the way the FDA wants to see, and most scientists want to see. That's the way medical science sort of works.
And with the hemp, oh my gosh, the building materials, it creates the strongest rope. I have a guy in Eugene that created a deck stain that will last 20 years out of hemp.
Yeah, that's Dave Sieber with
Hempcrete.
Hemp Shield. Yeah.
There was a car created by Ford that somebody took a sledgehammer to. It's like a 20-second video online, and the car did not dent.
Right. That was Henry Ford. That was Henry Ford swinging that sledgehammer.
Yes.
Yes.
But what happened is, big business, DuPont, it was their biggest competitor to cotton.
No doubt.
And so somehow big business made it illegal.
Do you think you guys might get hemp plants specifically
We're
into
doing
your
CBD. We've added that this year. And we will have experts there with hemp. And there's people are requesting big stores that want to start carrying hemp products.
Right. No, I know. I have some people who do, Ben Christensen from Oregon Hemp Works, friend of mine, online at least. We've interacted for years. He has a industrial hemp store that doesn't even deal with CBD. He's just all about the oil, the seed, and the fiber, which as much as I like CBD, I hope that part of the hemp industry doesn't get forgotten because the CBD value is so huge.
I think it's building. Jerry Norton down in Southern Oregon has about 500 acres growing, and all of it is sold. So there aren't a lot of hemp growers, but it is increasing.
Oh yeah, what they do grow gets gobbled up because there's definitely a market for regular old industrial hemp. But
yes.
I mean, I just the farmers have to be willing to grow it and go away from the valuable CBD crop. I do have a lot of concern actually around that. At this point, I'm concerned that the actual industrial hemp industry is suffering because everybody's growing the CBD. And as much as I like the CBD, I think it's got a lot of potential. It's really unproven in some ways. I mean, we need to study it more. So I think they're putting the cart ahead of the horse in some ways there. And I think that the industrial hemp market is there for fiber and seed, and I know that there's a market for CBD, but they can't even legally send it over state lines right now. The FDA is arguing with them, and there's all of these problems that people are ignoring because of greedy rush mentality in some cases.
It is very sad for me because in my 3 years, I've seen really hardworking people, mainstream people that have gone into the industry, and because of all the rules and regs and things changing daily, put people out of business.
There's plenty of people.
You've seen people put their life savings and time into this industry, and the sad part about that is when there was testing issues this year, when the people did what they were supposed to do to turn over to rec, basically the testing was so stringent that they did everything the way they were told to, and then crops didn't pass, and basically people lost their life savings. So that's one thing that we need to educate people, that it is not an easy industry, and if you don't know what you're doing, it's not smart to jump into it.
No, very much so. Very much so. I know
Yeah.
that there was a whole snafu with pesticides and the contaminated concentrates this year that really became an issue. And I still chalk a lot of it up to people not knowing how to apply legal pesticides. I mean, a lot of
Right,
these
and
crops
the
are
people that are
failing
in
for
it right
legal.
now, I call it they're blazing the trails.
Yeah,
I
it
have an
is.
investor right now who would like to buy a retail store, and he basically owns hotels and restaurant chains, and he basically approached me, and so I'm helping him find it. He then would like to take and, perfect it and then franchise to make everything more consistent. And it helps out some of the smaller people that they've put in a couple years and they didn't realize how difficult it was. So they want to sell out. Now, some
Sure.
want to stay. What I love is they want to continue to do craft people that the smaller guy can still be very successful. And I compare that to our wine and beer industry, that there is a huge need for that. But also, I feel that a lot of our experts who have done the time, gone to jail, have navigated through this, will be the experts and the consultants. So we're going to start doing grow tours.
I hope so. That needs to happen more.
That is really, Keith, there's a lot of shows out there, but for some reason I have become very passionate and care about this industry so much that this event we produce is really a nonprofit, and it's the industry pulling it together, and wanting to market and educate to the industry. And you said something funny earlier that people can actually display their product. Well, last year at the Cannabis Collaborative Conference, we had the media there, and they were jokingly saying that this is the only industry trade show that can't have their product at it. And they were kind of laughing about it.
Right.
So
well, that's changed in Oregon
made
now.
Great strides.
Yeah, totally. So we're running short on time, so let's give people the specifics on where they can get information and the dates again when you'll have the actual judging, and then when you're going to be at the fair.
So the Growers Fair, Oregon Cannabis Growers and Consumer Fair, is at the State Fairgrounds on August 12th and 13th. You can buy tickets. They're very inexpensive, $20 online at cangrowfair.com. On that website, you can learn more about the judging. We're still accepting plant applications from growers. We only have a few positions left. We do have a couple of exhibit booths left if anybody's interested in being part of it. Like I said, retail stores can actually take orders, but then they have to be delivered or the buyer needs to go to the store to pick it up.
Right, okay.
So the Growers Fair, again, August 12th and 13th, we will have the Can I Help You desk with medical professionals that people can talk to, become educated. And then the State Fair is August 25th through September 5th. And that is where the winning plants will be on display. And it will be more of an education. There won't be all the facets of the industry.
Right.
The one last thing, too, is there are a lot of growers that can grow at home. And we invite them to come down and learn from the growers the secrets. And the growers are absolutely willing to help and let them know what soil, what nutrients,
right. Well,
how to keep pests out.
Let me run this by you, because I know people who have quit the growing in any professional manner, but they still grow at home and grow really good cannabis. They could enter their plants feasibly, right?
Exactly.
So there's no limit to just being a licensed grower to be able to enter your plant in this competition and stuff. So,
and you will meet people down here that you can actually go into retail stores now and buy the plants. You can buy ones in all different sizes. If you're getting started, you may want to buy a larger one that's already strong and ready,
right.
at a point where it's not going to be as hard. But also, I think a lot of home growers are discovering that they can actually buy a better quality product in the retail stores and much less expensive. But there are a lot of home growers that we had one that submitted a plant last year, and he actually won a second place.
There you go.
So,
right.
Yeah, we
Okay.
don't want to limit it to just the industry. We want, everybody to be there and really to have this be a celebration for the industry because of how far we've come since it was legalized 2 years ago.
No, I agree. I think it's great. I'm really excited to have this happening again. And having it happen in conjunction with the fair and being able to display the plants at the fair. It's just awesome.
Thank you for what you do, Keith. Your newspaper and radio podcast is really valuable, and you've been in this a long time, and your help in promoting something like this that is so critical to the industry, we really appreciate your efforts.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the kudos. I won't turn it down. Been doing my part for quite a few years, and I'm really excited to see some of the changes in the public's attitude towards cannabis. So, and I think this goes a long way to doing that. So, thanks for being on our show and letting everybody know, Mary, about your event. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Keith.
Well, that was a great interview I had with Mary Lou. I hope you guys enjoyed that as well. I think we had a pretty good show today for our comeback show. I'm really glad that you were able to download and listen to our show this week. Thank you for doing that. And of course, you can catch Goddab Radio every Friday, except when we're on vacation, like we were for the last month. But every Friday at 3 p.m. It goes up, and you can either get it on www.goddabradio.com, or you can get it on all of the typical places you find podcasts, which includes iTunes, TuneIn, Google Music Play, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and most of the major players there. So thanks again for tuning in to Goddab Radio. I'm Mad Dog Manser, and we will see you. You will hear us next week. Thanks a lot, folks.